Welcome back to C Files, folks. Thanks for joining me. And I'm back to a devotion time in the scriptures. I'll be in Genesis chapter 10. Genesis, of course, is the first book of the Bible, a historic book or a historical book. It means it's giving a real life history of what happened. And it is God's word, it is given by inspiration of God. And in chapter 10, we're going to be reading about nations descended from Noah. Noah has and his family has survived the flood. We have Ham, Shem, and Japheth, his three sons. A curse was pronounced upon Ham for something he did in chapter 9, and he would be the servant of both Shem and Japheth. Japheth would enlarge himself, so that's a, a people who would be explorers spread across the earth. Shem would be more introspective, but let's take a look at the genealogy here. Now, this is the genealogy of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and sons were born to them after the flood. Now, this genealogy is important, folks, because we're going to see some things in this genealogy that a lot of people don't point out, but I'm going to bring them out. The sons of Japheth were Gomer. Gomer is mentioned in Ezekiel as one of the nations that would be judged in Ezekiel 38 and 39 in Gog and Magog, the war that occurs there, which that war is recorded in Esther. It's the one that occurred in Esther, where the Jews defended themselves against the edict of Haman. That's why they called part of it Haman Gog. And so Gomer is an important one there. And here's Magog, which is part of Gog and Magog of Ezekiel 38 and 39, and also of Esther. Madai, Jovan, Tubal. Tubal is also mentioned. So these were Japhethite nations. Now, Japheth was the one who created the Caucasian people of the Caucasus Mountains and the people of Europe and so forth. So these were whites who were being judged in Ezekiel 38, 39 of these nations that were coming against Israel, or the Caucasian races. So we have Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Bashish is also mentioned there, and Tiras. These were all mentioned in Ezekiel 38, 39. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Jovan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kedem, and Dodanim. From these, the coastal peoples of the Gentiles were separated into their lands, everyone according to his language, according to their families, into their nations. Now, that I believe that would include the Philistines as well. The sons of Ham, so here comes Ham, were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Now, Cush and Put and Canaan and Mizraim, we see all of them mentioned later on in Genesis. The sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ra'amah, and Sebtekah. And the sons of Ramah were Sheba and Dedan. Now, the reason this is important is because you're going to see these names later on, and you're going to wonder who are these people? If you want to know who they are, you're going to have to go back to Genesis chapter 10 and read the genealogy to know who they are when they're mentioned later in the Bible. All right. Now here comes an important one. Cush begat Nimrod. Nimrod. He's a key. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. What does that mean, the mighty hunter before the Lord? He was a conqueror. He hunted men. He formed armies and conquered other people. That's what it's not talking about hunting animals. I know a lot of people think that's what it means. It's not. You're going to see that in a moment. And the beginning of his kingdom. Well, how do you get a kingdom? He got a kingdom because he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. In other words, he was a mighty conqueror before the Lord. Before the Lord means against the Lord. He was doing this contrary to God's will or God's purpose. God had a permissive will. God allowed him in his permissive will to do this because God was going to use this in his ultimate plan for mankind, but it was not his ultimate will. In other words, what Nimrod was doing was contrary to God's law, his holiness, his righteousness. So Nimrod starts conquering people. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, which became Babylon later. So we have Babel, we have Erech, we have Akkad, and Calneh, excuse me, in the land of Shinar. All right. If you read a book on ancient history, and I have several back here on my bookshelf, they mention Babel as one of the most ancient civilizations, probably the most ancient civilization recorded in archaeological history. From that land, he went to Assyria and built Nineveh. So here's Nineveh. Now, remember, Nineveh was the capital of Babylon, or when Nebuchadnezzar came down in 586 BC to take Judah into captivity. So this was the beginning of Nineveh. Nineveh had been around a long time. Remember, Nineveh was also the city that Jonah was told to go to and pronounce judgment upon them, and they ended up repenting, and Jonah was mad about that. So Nineveh lasted a long time as a city. From that land, he went to Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Ir, Calah, and Rezin between Nineveh and Calah. That is the principal city. Mesrom begot Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtuhim, Pathrushim, and Casluhim, from whom came the Philistines and Caphtorim. So now we know I was wrong about the Philistines. The Philistines were Hamites, not Japhethites. So the Philistines were a dark-skinned race. Because Ham, he was one where the African people came from Ham. Because of the directions that the Bible says they went, the Shem went east, Japheth went west, Ham went south toward the African nations. All right. Canaan begat Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, and the Jebusite. So you hear about Jebusites later on, and the Exodus and all of that. So you know that the Jebusites were Hamites. The Amorite were Hamites, and the Girgashite, and the Hivites, and the Archite, and the Sinite, and the Arvadite, and the Zemarite, and the Hamathite. So there's some names that you may recognize if you study the Bible. You'll recognize Hivite, you'll recognize Jebusite and Girgashite. You'll recognize them. Well, they were Hamites and the Hamathite. Afterward, the families of the Canaanites, you'll recognize them. They were Hamites, were dispersed. And the border of the Canaanites was from Sidon as you go toward Gerar, as far as Gaza. Then as you go toward Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, as far as Lasha. These were the sons of Ham according to their families, according to their languages in the lands of their nations. So we know now Sodom and Gomorrah were Hamite cities. And the children were born also to Shem. So here's Shem, the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, excuse me, the elder. The sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, with the X, how do you pronounce that? The Z, okay. Arphazad, Lud, and Aram. Now, these are also places I recognize later on in the Bible. The sons of Aram were Uz. Interesting that Job was a Shemite. He was from Uz. Hul, Gather, and Mash. Arphazad begot Salah, and Salah begot Eber. To Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg. That's a name we'll see again. For in his days the earth was divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. The earth was divided. Some believe that this might be referencing the dividing of the continents. Joktan begot Almodad, Shilaf, Hazarmavat, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, the queen of Sheba, went to see Solomon, Ophir, Hevelah, and Jobab. All these were the sons of Joktan. And their dwelling place was from Mesha as you go toward Sephir, the mountain of the east. So they went east. So that's the Asiatic nations. And that's the nation that Abraham was a Shemite. So the Hebrews were Shemites. Also were the nations of Ishmael. They came out of Ishmael. They're Shemites. These were the sons of Shem, according to their families, according to their languages, in their lands, according to their nations. These were the families of the sons of Noah, according to their generations, in their nations, and from these the nations were divided on the earth after the flood. So God is saying here that the nations were divided among the three sons of Noah. So you have the Japhites going toward the west, European nations, and the Caucasus Mountains, Russia, all that. You have the Shemites going east, the Asiatic and Middle Eastern nations. And then you have the Hamites, partially Middle Eastern and African nations. And that's Genesis chapter 10. All right, we'll go to Proverbs. And I think we're Proverbs 30 today. Proverbs is a book of wisdom, and we will gain wisdom from Proverbs. We're in 31, excuse me. This is the virtuous woman. The words of King Lemuel's mother. Instruction to the ladies out of Proverbs 31. All right. Hope the heater that keeps kicking on and off is not making too much noise in the background. Let me put it on the stand so it's easier for me. Genesis, I can't do that because it just flops around too much. Let me set this up. All right. Here's wisdom for the ladies from God Almighty. The words of King Lemuel, the utterance which his mother taught him. What, my son? And what, son of my womb? And what, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, nor your ways to that which destroys kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes intoxicating drink, lest they drink and forget the law, and pervert the justice of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to him who is perishing, and wine to those who are bitter of heart. Let him drink and forget his poverty and remember his misery no more. Open your mouth for the speechless in the cause of all who are appointed to die. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. So she's telling her son how to be a good king. Now we have the virtuous wife. Who can find a virtuous wife? For her worth is far above rubies. The heart of her husband safely trusts her. So he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil. All the days of her life, she seeks wool and flax and willing works with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She also rises while it is yet night and provides food for her household and a portion for her maidservants. She considers a field and buys it. From her profits, she plants a vineyard. So she's not only a good homemaker, as they used to be called, she's not only good at providing for the needs of her family and in the home, as far as meals and sewing up, you know, tears in the clothing, things like that, keeping the house. She's also a good businesswoman. She's able to wisely buy a field and turn it into something productive. And her profits, she buys plants and plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and strengthens her arms. She's not weak. She's of good, strong body. She proceeds not in the manly sense, but women have a certain type of strength. She perceives that her merchandise is good and her lamp does not go out by night. She makes sure there's oil for the lamps at night so her family can get up at night if they need to. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hand holds the spindle. That's the sewing machine in our day. She extends her hand to the poor. Yes, she reaches out her hands to the needy. She's a woman of compassion for those who are in need. She's a giving woman. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household is clothed with scarlet. She makes sure that they have warm clothing in the winter. She makes tapestry for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. She looks good for her husband. Her husband is known in the gates. The gates that's where the leaders of the city would gather. The city council, the planning and zoning board, and city council of the city, would be at the gates, and they would speak well of her husband because she makes her husband look good. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies sashes for the merchants. So she's a good business lady. She makes things and sells it for extra income for her home. Strength and honor are her clothing. She's an honorable woman. She's a strong woman. What's a strong woman? She has endurance. She's able to endure hardship to take care of her family. She's also strong enough to work a spindler for clothing, to work a field, to bring forth vegetables and fruit. She shall rejoice in time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She doesn't speak ghetto. She speaks like a refined woman. She speaks wisdom when she opens her mouth. She doesn't spew loudly her contentiousness. Apply that as you may. Um, She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. She watches over the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She's not idle. She works for her family. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Yeah, because she's a good mom. Her husband also, and he praises her because she's a good wife. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is passing. But a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. She is a beauty inside that far surpasses the beauty outside of women who flaunt themselves. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her own works praise her in the gates. That is a beautiful and godly woman. Now we're going to be in Ecclesiastes, but I'm going to pause for a second. This heater, I'm going to turn it off for just a moment. So I brought a portable heater in to kind of stay a little bit warm, and it's a little too loud. So I'm going to let it cut off. Now, the next proverb will be Proverb 1. So I'm going to push that back to there. There we go. Ecclesiastes, we're in Ecclesiastes, chapter 5, it looks like. Or, yeah. Did I read 4? Yes, I did. It's chapter 5. Ecclesiastes, another book of wisdom, different than Proverbs in that it's not proverbs, short proverbs, sayings of wisdom. This is more of a running philosophy, if you will, a philosophy of life. As Solomon is trying to explore this philosophy and trying to understand life as he observes it. And so that's the kind of way to understand Ecclesiastes. And chapter 5 is fear God, keep your vows. Walk prudently when you go to the house of God. The house of God would be the temple where they did the sacrifices and so forth, animal sacrifices. Walk prudently when you go to the house of God and draw near to hear rather than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they do not know that they do evil. Do not be rash with your mouth, and let not your heart utter anything hastily before the Lord. Yeah, be careful. Do not quickly agree to things. Do not quickly make vows before God, but consider what you're doing. For God is in heaven and you on earth, therefore let your words be few. For a dream comes through much activity, and a fool's voice is known by his many words. Yeah. Sometimes people speak too much and they speak foolish things. When you make a vow to God, do not delay to pay it, for he has no pleasure in fools. Pay what you have vowed. Better not to vow than to vow and not pay. So if you agree to make a payment, if you take a loan and you don't pay the paid loan, yeah, you're gonna have an issue, can have a problem, right? Do not let your mouth cause your flesh to sin. We have runaway mouths in our society today. And many people in our society let their mouth cause their flesh to sin. No control over what they say and how they say it. Just all kinds of vanity and vexation and vulgar language flowing out of their mouth. It indicates what's in their heart. Do not let your mouth cause your flesh to sin, nor say before the messenger of God that it was an error. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to say that. No. It's too late. It's already said. It's done. Why should God be angry at your excuse and destroy the work of your hands? For in the multitude of dreams and in many words there is also vanity, but fear God. I think I read this before. So I'm going to run on into 6 from this. Yeah. If you see the oppression of the poor and the violent perversion of justice and righteousness in a province, do not marvel at the matter, for high official watches over the high official and higher officials over them. I did read this. I'll just read through it and then we'll hit 6 real quick. Moreover, the profit of the land is for all, even the king is served from the field. He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. So what profit have the owners, except to see them with their eyes? The sleep of a laboring man is sweet, whether he eats little or much, but the abundance of the rich will not permit him to sleep. There is a severe evil which I have seen under the sun. Riches kept for their own owner to his hurt. But those riches perish through misfortune. When he begets a son, there is nothing in his hand. As he came from his mother's womb, naked shall he return to go as he came. And he shall take nothing for his labor, which he may carry away in his hand. And this also is a severe evil. Just exactly as he came, so shall he go. And what profit has he who has labored for the wind? All his days he also eats in darkness, and he has much sorrow in sickness and anger. Here is what I have seen. It is good and fitting for one to eat and drink and to enjoy the good of all his labor in which he toils under the sun all the days of his life which God gives him, for it is his heritage. As for every man to whom God has given riches and wealth, and given him power to eat of it, to receive his heritage and rejoice in his labor. This is the gift of God, for he will not dwell unduly on the days of his life, because God keeps him busy with the joy of his heart. Now we're in chapter 6. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, and it is common among men. A man to whom God has given riches and wealth and honor, so that he lacks nothing for himself for all he desires. Yet God does not give him power to eat of it, but a foreigner consumes it. This is vanity, and it is an evil affliction. A man works hard to gain everything and to enjoy his sustenance, and then someone comes along and takes it away from him. If a man begets 100 children and lives many years, so that the days of his years are many, but his soul is not satisfied with goodness, or indeed he has no burial. I say that a stillborn child is better than he, for it comes in vanity and departs in darkness, and its name is covered with darkness, though it has not seen the sun or known anything. This has more rest than that man, even if he lives 1,000 years twice, but has not seen goodness. Do not all go to one place? That'd be the grave. It's better to go in stillbirth than to live a horrible life when you get here. All the labor of man is for his mouth eating, and yet the soul is not satisfied. For what more has the wise man than the fool? What does the poor man have? Who knows how to walk before the living? Better is the sight of the eyes than the wandering of desire. There is a vanity and grasping for the wind. Grasping for the wind is grasping for nothing. There's nothing there. You're grasping, but you're not getting there. Striving, but it's you just can't seem to obtain what you're trying to obtain. Whatever one is, he has been named already, for it is known that he is man. And he cannot contend with him who is mightier than he. We can't contend with God. Since there are many things that increase vanity, how is man better? For who knows what is good for man in life? All the days of his vain life, which he passes like a shadow. Who can tell a man what will happen after him under the sun? How do I know what will become of my grandchildren's generation? I don't, because I will most likely be gone from this earth by the time they live long enough for them to even know what becomes of their own generation. We're going to leave it there, and we'll be in Ezekiel, and we're going to read about a wonderful thing in Ezekiel in the next reading here on the devotion time. Thank you for watching. I hope this is a blessing to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be back with the prophet.